When people think about the best ride at Epcot, they usually picture giant roller coasters, space adventures, or massive movie themed attractions. Something loud, something fast, something with a 2 hour wait time. But ask longtime Disney fans what the best attraction in the park is, and you might hear an answer that sounds completely ridiculous. A slow boat ride. About vegetables. The attraction is called Living with the Land, and on paper, it sounds like the least exciting ride Disney has ever built. It's a 15-minute cruise through greenhouses narrated like a science documentary. No drops, no explosions, no dramatic finale. And yet, somehow, this ride has become one of the most beloved attractions in the entire park. Because once you actually pay attention to what's happening around you, you start realizing something strange. This ride isn't just a ride. It's a floating tour through a real working farm, hidden inside a theme park. And the deeper you look, the more you realize this quiet little boat ride might secretly be one of the most ambitious things Disney ever built. But to understand why, you need to go back to the beginning, when Epcot itself had a very different idea of what a theme park should be. So with that being said, sit back, relax, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's jump into this. When Epcot opened in 1982, the park wasn't designed to be a traditional theme park. In fact, the original concept was almost the opposite. Instead of focusing on thrill rides and characters, Epcot was built around big ideas about the future. Entire pavilions explored topics like energy, transportation, and communication. Guests weren't just supposed to ride attractions, they were supposed to learn something along the way, which is where Living with the Land came in. The ride was built inside a massive glass structure called the Land Pavilion, and its goal was surprisingly simple: show guests how humans grow food, and how we might grow it differently in the future. At first glance, that doesn't sound like the foundation for a beloved Disney attraction. But Disney didn't just build a ride about farming. They built an entire agricultural research facility, and then sent boats floating through the middle of it. And somehow, that strange idea worked. But what most guests don't realize is that the version we see today isn't even the original version of the attraction. Because when the ride first opened, it was a little stranger. Back in the early days of Epcot, the attraction wasn't called Living with the Land at all. It was called Listen to the Land. And it had a very different vibe. Instead of the common narration guests hear today, the ride originally featured a full theme song that played throughout the attraction. Boats were guided by live cast members who narrated the journey in real time. And the opening scenes leaned heavily into abstract environmental storytelling. One sequence in particular, known as Symphony of the Seed, tried to show the journey of a single seed growing into a plant. It was colorful, slightly surreal, and very much a product of early 1980s Epcot design. Over the years, Disney slowly updated the attraction. The name changed to Living with the Land. The narration became automated, and the storytelling was simplified to focus more directly on agriculture and sustainability. But one thing remained exactly the same: the greenhouses. Because once the boat drifts out of the dark scenes and into those giant glass structures, the attraction stops feeling like a typical theme park ride and starts feeling like something completely different. About halfway through the ride, something unexpected happens. The boat quietly turns a corner, and suddenly the scenery changes. Instead of artificial sets and lighting effects, guests enter enormous working greenhouses inside the Land Pavilion. Sunlight pours in through the glass ceilings, real plants stretch across rows of growing systems, and water pumps circulate through tubes and tanks. And at that moment, you realize something surprising. None of this is fake. These greenhouses are real agricultural labs where scientists experiment with new ways of growing food. Some plants grow in hydraulic systems, where the roots sit in nutrient-rich water instead of soil. Others grow vertically, stacked upward in a tall tower to maximize space. Nearby tanks raise fish like tilapia as part of the aquaculture systems that recycle nutrients back into the plants. It's essentially a small research farm operated right in the middle of a Disney attraction. Guests float past it casually, snapping pictures or pointing out giant vegetables, while researchers behind the scenes study ways to grow crops more efficiently. And speaking of giant vegetables, some of the plants growing in these greenhouses look something like out of science fiction. As the boats move deeper into the greenhouse, the plants start getting stranger. Massive gourds hang overhead, Exotic fruits like dragon fruit and jackfruit appear among rows of crops. Some plants grow sideways, others grow in spirals. And then there are the crops that grow without soil at all. Hydroponic systems pump nutrient-rich water directly into the plant roots, allowing them to grow faster while using far less water and space than traditional farming methods. It's the kind of technology that researchers believe could help feed cities in the future. But among all the strange crops in the greenhouse, one plant became legendary among Disney fans. A tomato plant. But not just any tomato plant. A tomato plant that turned into a monster. For years, one of the most talked about things inside living with the land was something fans called the EPCOT tomato tree. Technically, it wasn't a tree at all. It was a single tomato plant grown using advanced hydroponic techniques. But the plant grew so large, it spread across an entire metal support structure. Vines stretched in every direction, loaded with clusters of tomatoes. And over its lifetime, that single plant produced more than 30,000 tomatoes. Guests riding the attraction could literally watch it grow over time, returning months later to see the plant expanding further across the greenhouse. It became one of those strange Disney facts that sounds made up, until you see it with your own eyes. But the tomato tree revealed something important about the attraction. The experiments happening here weren't just demonstrations, they were real agricultural research. And the most surprising part? Some of the food grown in these greenhouses doesn't stay here. It ends up on people's plates. After finishing the boat ride, most guests simply walk away. But just a short distance from the attraction are restaurants that quietly rely on the greenhouse crops. Places like Garden Go Restaurant and Sunshine Seasons use ingredients grown inside the pavilion, which means the lettuce, tomatoes, peppers, and herbs used in the meal might have been harvested only a few hundred feet away. It's essentially a miniature farm-to-table system inside a theme park. You can ride through the greenhouse, see the crops growing, then eat them later that same day. It's one of those small details most guests never notice, but once you learn about it, the attraction suddenly feels a lot more impressive. Because what seemed like a quiet boat ride about plants is actually demonstrating something much bigger. A possible glimpse of how farming could work in the future. In a park full of loud rides and flashy technology, living with the land does something completely different. It slows everything down. It's peaceful. It's strangely fascinating. And it still represents the original idea behind EPCOT, showing real innovations that could shape the future. The ride isn't trying to overwhelm you with thrills. It's inviting you to notice things you normally wouldn't. The systems growing plants without soil. The research happening quietly behind the scenes. The idea that solutions to real problems, like feeding a growing population, might already be developing inside a greenhouse in a theme park. And that's why so many fans love it. Because in a park that's constantly changing, this ride still captures the spirit of EPCOT and what it was meant to be. Which leads to a strange realization. At first glance, a slow boat ride about agriculture doesn't sound like the best attraction in the park. But once you notice everything happening inside it, living with the land becomes something completely different. It's relaxing. It's educational without trying too hard. And it's quietly one of the most unique attractions Disney has ever created. It's a theme park ride that doubles as a real working farm. A science experiment you can float through. And maybe the only place on Earth where tomato plants become a Disney legend. So next time someone tries to ask you what the best ride at EPCOT is, you might surprise them. Because the answer might just be one about vegetables.